What a complete fucking insult to your ancestors' history of struggling under slavery. To think that there was once a time where you had legitimate concerns if you were black in America. You know, slavery, segregation. And yet apparently now, the racism that these apparently racist blacks are fighting against is the racism of subliminal messages, which ultimately turned out to be meritless. You guys may have heard of the clothing company Gap, popular clothing company. Well, they released an advertisement a few days ago, and this is it right here, the one on the left. Ignore this black and white one on the right. This image on the left was deemed racist by race-obsessed blacks. It shows a white young girl resting her arm on the head of a young black girl. And apparently, people got up in arms, mostly racist blacks, who are probably being manipulated by white liberals, because even the so-called pro-black empowered crowd, they still puppet the sort of victim, boo-hoo, I can't do anything, I'm weak and pathetic under white supremacy and white people, that white liberals have brainwashed into blacks for so many decades now. So the problem, of course, is that the Gap ultimately did remove the advertisement. You know, politically correct, cowardly corporations removed the racist ad, but of course someone found on the internet this picture on the right. It's a black and white image from the same clothing company, and it shows a young black girl resting her arm on the head of a young white girl. You have the left picture, you have the one on the right, and did these same blacks get up in arms because they said that this was racist? Of course not. Because the blacks who are complaining about this literal non-existent racist case are racists themselves. So of course, as you see, it's blatant double standards. And that, of course, is one reason why I voted for you-know-who, Mr. Donald Trump, bringing in to the stupid, racist, bullshit double standards. Link to the shirt is below because it's a badass shirt. But it really kind of points to how irrational these people are, because they see racism literally where none exists. And there's actually a long history of the Black Lives Matter movement seeing racism where none of it exists. And one great example of this was the WDBJ shooter. You guys may have remembered a few months ago, this guy shot two of his news anchor co-workers. And in his manifesto, he claimed that he experienced racism at work. Of course, what racism did he experience? This totally unhinged schizophrenic maniac? Well, he claimed that his coworkers once brought watermelon to eat for lunch. And he thought that that was a way of his coworkers to mock him subliminally. You know, the stereotype of black people liking watermelons. Okay, no legitimate evidence ever surfaced that there was racism against him at his workplace. But he saw racism where none existed. There was another instance with a shooter. One of his coworkers said, "All right, guys, we got to go on the field and get this story done." And of course, this schizophrenic maniac thought that his coworker meant, "What do you mean, pick cotton in cotton fields?" Totally maddening delusion. But the thing is that even though this guy was probably inspired by Black Lives Matter, and that he's completely irrational seeing racism where none exists, Black Lives Matter has done that over and over and over again for many, many years now. And there's countless examples, and I'll show you them. I'll show you examples where the mainstream Black Lives Matter movement exhibited this irrational fear that racism exists around every corner. They exhibit the same irrational fear that this lone gunman nutjob used as his justification for literally shooting down and killing two white people. Here are a few examples. Example number one. You guys may remember Dylan Roof. He's the white kid who went up into a church and shot up a bunch of black people. Total racist, retarded idiot, right? Well, the Black Lives Matter movement thought that these pictures that surfaced showing police escorting Dylan Roof, that this is proof of white privilege. Here it is. White privilege is murdering 9 people and then having the police give you a bulletproof vest but no handcuffs. And they show this picture, and it looks like Dylan Roof's arm is sticking out here, free and loose. White, free and loose. You can just kill people in America. You can kill black people in America, and you're just going to be allowed to walk free, right? Well, it turns out that that is actually just the arm of the officer standing behind Dylan Roof. That is not the free arm of Dylan Roof. That's the officer behind him, his arm. Dylan's arms are in fact handcuffed. In fact, this moron had to delete his picture. So that's just one example of these people literally seeing racism where none exists. Here's another example. DeRay McKeeson, a blatant racist, black supremacist, because I've seen him with shirts that say, I love my blackness and yours. He's a fucking racist, black supremacist racist masquerading as a victim to justify his black supremacist ideology. Mr. DeRay, in a tweet, he said, they put Dylan in a bulletproof vest as he walked to the police car. Watch whiteness work. So this racist idiot, who is arguably just as unhinged as Bryce Williams, the WDBJ shooter, in his paranoid schizophrenic belief that racism exists around every corner, he thinks that because Dylan Roof is being escorted with a bulletproof vest, it must be because white privilege. But anybody who's paid attention to anything over the past few years may have heard of the DC sniper. And this is a guy who, with his father, were literally shooting down people with a sniper rifle for, I think, weeks before they were caught. This guy right here is being escorted with a bulletproof vest, just like Dylan Roof. This guy killed 16 people. Some say he was racially motivated, apprehended without an incident, and given a bulletproof vest. Dylan Roof, he killed 9 people. That's nearly half of what this guy killed, escorted in a bulletproof vest. So by this racist retard's logic, isn't this proof of black privilege? Of course not, because these are just racists who don't want to admit it. I would say it's not necessarily black privilege, but it's also not white privilege. It's just what you do. It's standard police operations. But that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning of the irrational seeing racism where none exists of the Black Lives Matter movement. Here's another example. In September 2015, students, probably a bunch of racist black students, sorry, it's just true, at the University of Delaware, they thought they saw nooses in the trees on campus. These race-obsessed, racist, paranoid, schizophrenic idiots. It turns out that lanterns, tree lanterns, were mistaken for nooses on the campus. It turns out that these were not nooses. They were actually the strings that hold up common party lanterns. These right here. These lanterns here. You hold them up with these little strings, you pull them off, and if you're a lazy college student, you're not going to climb the tree to take the fucking string out. And they literally had a panic attack. There was a whole investigation that the campus came to a grinding halt. The racist black students on campus held their stupid, cliche Black Lives Matter fucking protest. And it turns out that it was literally just strings from tree lanterns that they thought were nooses. So they literally go through life with a confirmation bias, looking for racism around every corner. We have another example just from, I believe, yesterday or today. Indiana University. Apparently, a lot of dumb idiots go to college nowadays, including a lot of dumb racist black students. Indiana University students mistake a priest for a KKK member. This is a priest in a white robe. He's walking around on campus. He's a priest, mind you. And some racist, race-obsessed students, I don't know if it was a black student or a white student who saw him, notified everybody, there was a complete meltdown on campus. Official statements were released saying there's a guy on campus, there's a KKK member on campus, watch out, he might attack you. It turns out he was just a priest. But it shows you the racist, race-obsessed, paranoid, schizophrenic, arguably, mind of these black racists. So why did Gap take this picture down, but not this picture? Well, because white people generally are not as race-obsessed as, apparently, some racist blacks in this country are. Because, look at it. Did any white people get up in arms when they saw this picture and say, oh my God, this is racist, take it down, Gap? No, they didn't. It only happened the other way. It's called a racist double standard. Real simple. And no, it's not reverse race. No one said anything about reversals. It's just racism, period, you dopes. No one said anything about reverse. No, you're just racist, stupid. God. So, anyways, I mean, I could go on and on with this. I mean, it's also the same thing. You know, they said Oscars so white. You know, Will Smith said the Oscars were so white because there weren't enough blacks nominated. But approximately 76% of NBA players are black. White people watch black sports, black basketball, and I don't see them saying that, you know, it's unfair that there's a majority of blacks. So why is it unfair that there's a majority of whites in the Oscars? It seems the only people looking at race are race-obsessed, racist blacks, saying the Oscars is racist, saying this picture is racist. Yet you don't see any protests by whites saying, oh, if there's a black majority in this organization like the NBA, that is a problem. You don't see it the other way around. So it kind of tells you who is racistly race-obsessed here. It's pretty obvious. So that's basically the gist of it. There's really nothing else for me to say on this topic. It's pretty ridiculous. Again, guys, kick-ass Trump shirts down below. Finally, someone with balls.
I thought that was disgusting. The microphone, they just took the whole place over. That will never happen with me. I don't know if I'll do the fighting myself or if other people will, but that was a disgrace.